What's up, everyone? Welcome to Cruising with Cruz. I am Cruz. Today, we are actually going to have the chance to finally talk about Memorial Day's weekend's Triple Crown races, Monaco GP, Indy 500, and the World 600. Wanted to get this video out a lot sooner. Actually, I was planning on getting this video out on Monday, but forgot how to work Monday, so things got twisted with my schedule, and yesterday I was really busy, so I'm glad I found the time and effort and the much needed coffee to get me through today. So I want to get into it. First things first, I'm actually going to put out another video in regards to my Triple Crown attempt doing the Monaco GP, Indy 500, and the World 600, because I did do that myself. I was only able to attempt 912 miles. I'll get into that in the next video, but in this one, I want to talk about the real races that happened, especially with the controversy that happened, mostly with Indy and with the Kyle Larson double, too. So first things first, Monaco GP, because I'm not a big F1 fan, but I do like following that race in particular just because of the prestigious event or the prestige behind it. But also, I was watching that race because it was at 6 o'clock my time here because I'm in Pacific time. And throughout the race, yeah, it was boring. It was really boring. I will admit, Lance Stroll made a pretty good pass at the most, I think, where I feel like is probably the best place to pass people, which is that little chicane that goes out into the marina and then back in once you're exiting that tunnel. For a kid that's got a silver spoon in his mouth, I thought that was pretty cool. Oh yeah, I forgot, before I continue on, because I'm all over the place, please give me a like, subscribe, and hit that ring notification button for more videos in the future. And I just dropped my pen. Yeah, I'm doing this all in one take because I'm also learning how to edit videos. I actually downloaded CapCut, so I'm gonna learn how to make it, videos a little more authentic, I guess you could say. But yeah, Monaco GP, the lead up to it, Ferrari was having its struggles. Leclerc, I loved hearing his radio chatter, and Hamilton's too. Like, I believe it was one of the practice sessions, Hamilton was going into one of the chicanes, and instead of kind of just, fully committing to the chicane, he just full sent it and went flying, got all four wheels off the ground. So that was pretty cool to watch. It's kind of sad to see Hamilton just kind of racing for kind of really bad equipment now, in my opinion, because the fact that Williams can outperform a Ferrari now, I think Carlos Sainz made a good choice in leaving Ferrari, that's for sure. Or actually, no, Ferrari giving him the boot so they can have Hamilton in there. But yeah, Leclerc was just not happy. The way he was just elaborating over the radio, I mean, I don't blame the guy, especially Ferrari being a well-known team. Like, that's one of the teams I actually like since I got into Formula One, mainly when Michael Schumacher was in his final year with Ferrari. So yeah, that was pretty hard to watch, but McLaren ends up winning again. Lando Norris, took that top podium spot. It was Leclerc and then Oscar Piastri, and rounding up the podium. And then a couple hours later, it was the lead up to the Indy 500, and I gotta admit, Fox really didn't do a good job in terms of the build up to it was good. They definitely had some intriguing points, storylines, all that stuff leading up to it, especially with the whole Penske controversy, which I'll get into right now. But yeah, Fox was doing a great job when they were doing the practice sessions, throughout those 2 weeks. It was great. I loved the build up to it. And then once we got to the actual race, one of the complaints I was seeing over the internet was that last caution and like what exactly happened. And for those IndyCar fans that don't know how Fox broadcasts, well, welcome to the world of NASCAR. That's kind of how we've been dealing with over the last, I don't know, 10 years with Fox. Now that I think about it, because ever since they put Gordon into the booth, I felt like NASCAR and Fox kind of just took a nosedive, which was great because now we had NASCAR and Prime kind of take over, and I'll talk more about that too, because phenomenal coverage by Prime, honestly. But anyways, we're talking about Indy here. So yeah, the build up to the Indy 500 there was a lot going on, especially Kyle Larson doing that double. And there was a lot of tense, I don't know why, but I definitely felt a weird vibe going into the Indy 500 just because I don't know how the racing was going to be now that they implemented these new hybrid systems. The quality of race of itself was something. And then it was a cold, overcast day. Now, last year, if I do recall, weather did play a big role into the build-up into the Indy 500. And again, it was the same story again because Kyle Larson was kind of crunching it in time in terms of that race. Now, I wasn't able to really follow that as much because I was still doing my Monaco GP, but I had the race going on in my background. And I guess the starting time for the Indianapolis 500 was supposed to be 11 their time, and ended up being started like around almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so, yeah, Kyle Larson was push crunching it with time. But even before the race started, Scotty Mack ended up wrecking. The number 3 Pennzoil Chevrolet ended up wrecking even before he started. And man, because I heard what happened in the background, but I was just too focused into my race. And so once I finished my Monaco GP, I kind of gave myself a little bit of downtime. So I was able to watch the Indy 500 and also kind of watch the highlights and catch up what happened. And dang, I really, just how the emotion that you just see in his face before the race started, I just felt for the guy because he didn't even get a chance to start. You know, he started at the very back and boom, ends up wrecking before the race even started. And we get the green flag going, and I think it was the first lap. Marco Andretti ends up wrecking because, you know, everyone's just kind of just filing in into turn 1, you know, especially those 3 wide starts. Pretty chaotic. So Marco ended up getting eliminated. And yeah, the quality of the race was just very interesting from the get-go. I was able to watch most of it before I started my Indy 500 because I wanted to start at least an hour after I finished my race. But so yeah, going into the Indy 500, obviously all eyes were on Kyle Larson too because of what's been going on, you know, with him doing the double, and also with the whole Penske controversy. Prior to this race, if anyone didn't know what happened, pretty sure by this point everyone knew what happened. Building up to this, last Sunday on not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before that, the qualifying. Penske ended up withdrawing or essentially getting disqualified because they had some illegal parts on their car. Coincidentally, Scotty Mack's car didn't have it. And then later down the week, Roger Penske ended up canning Tim Cindric and some other guy from the program. And I know a lot of people are hating on Roger Penske. I'm not a big fan of Team Penske, to be honest, but I will give the benefit of the doubt because I can understand where Roger Penske's coming from, especially him not knowing exactly what's going on behind the scenes, and the fact that, you know, he had to kind of find out the hard way that this is the first time that they've done it. He was like, you know, he had to make a tough choice, you know. And as much as you want to hate Team Penske for what it is, you know, again, you got to give credit where credit's due, you know, because at the end of the day, Roger didn't know exactly what was going on behind the scenes, and so. But that doesn't excuse the fact that since he owns the series, he can go ahead and cheat and kind of manipulate it. And I think that's why Joseph Newgarden, I really feel for the guy too, because I mean, I feel like especially him, he doesn't know what's going on. All he's doing is just driving the car and just doing what he's supposed to do behind the wheel, you know? Same goes with Scotty Mack and Will Power too, you know? And again, I don't know what happens behind the scenes, you know? Maybe they're good at having coverage and whatnot. But again, I'm not the one to be quick to judge just yet, you know. But yeah, once they finally canned the guys and all that stuff, yeah, there was a lot of tense building up into the race. Like I said, with Scotty Mack wrecking out before the race started, it was like, dang. But Joseph Newgarden was driving with determination. He literally was driving from the back to the front, and it was amazing how quickly he was able to go from the back to the front. And what sucked for him, though, I think it was the last cycle of pit stops where no, it wasn't the last cycle pit stops, but essentially I think it was like a fuel related issue. I think it was just not the fuel. He was just getting a proper fuel flow, and he had to come in, and essentially that ended his race. So that sucked. But I got a little ahead of myself there. I believe it was lap 90, I think it was. Kyle Larson on a restart. I got to give credit where credit's due too. You know, Kyle Larson was going in there. I think essentially too, coming from his standpoint, that time crunch was kind of kicking in his head, because I even noticed his emotion going into the 600, which I'll get to next. But yeah, man, I really felt gutted for him. Like, once I saw him wreck going into 2 and he takes out other cars, I'm like, dude, even my dad was like, what happened? And because I had the race fully blasted. Like I said, this past Sunday was, everyone's Motorsports Day, so it was Christmas Day for us Motorsports fan. But I was really pulling for Larson. I feel like if there's one driver in our lifetime that can not only pull the double but win both races, it is Kyle Larson. Unfortunately, that double came to a quick end when he wrecked out, and his interview right after he was released from a care center. I knew the way that interview went and him going into the 600. I think I heard someone say it best that he wanted to go in there and just do some ass whooping into the 600. But I'll get into that in just a sec. But yeah, once that caution happened, it was just that's when the anticipation, the sense of urgency was starting to build up, because now we're getting past that halfway point, and now everyone was kind of just duking it out. I want to give a shout out to Connor Daly though. Man, that guy was driving with determination. Honestly, it was unbelievable to see him really drive like he wanted that win, like aside from me seeing, I think it was, like I said, Joseph Newgarden from the back to the front, Connor Daly was putting on some dedicated drives there, and man, he was really trying to go for it, Again, like I said, I wasn't really paying attention as much because I think at this point is when I was starting my Indy 500, but like I said, I still had things going on in the background because I wanted to stay informed. I wanted to stay up to date, But yeah, and then Robert Schwartzman too, the rookie. I haven't mentioned one thing about him, but man, the Prima Racing team, everyone thought they weren't going to qualify, or at least one of the cars was going to miss the show. No, not only did they qualify both cars into the show, but Robert Schwartzman ended up qualifying the pole. And man, that guy, seeing his interview saying like how qualifying, it was nothing compared to this, and his determination to qualify in those 4 laps, was like nothing like ever before. That was awesome to see, and it was cool to see him not get too aggressive right off the bat. When he was just kind of just riding in the pack, just trying to learn, as the time goes on. Because, again, 500 miles is a long race, But, again, with those cautions happening, it was just a really weird race. I've heard a lot of people say, and I can agree with them, because it was just, something was off, Something wasn't, like, it didn't feel right. Like, not in a bad way, but it was just, like, and, again, the quality of racing was just, like, again, I think the quality of racing has a lot to do with those new hybrid systems that they implemented on those cars. But again, I'm not an expert on the Indy cars, but I can say one thing's for sure: that quality of racing was something else. But like I said, I wanted to give a shout out to Connor Daly, because man, that guy was driving the wheels off of that thing. Excuse me. And so yeah, going into the final laps, who was up front already, or like lurking up there, was Alex Palou. And man, I gotta give, again, credit where credit's due. Like, this guy, I think Alex Palou right now is kind of like on a tear like Jimmy Johnson was in the Cup Series. Because I don't know what that team's done, but they got it figured out. And they're running that race. They were running that race like they owned it, And Alex Palou is the second driver to win. Oh, God, excuse me. He's the second driver to win both the Grand Prix, the Indy Grand Prix, which was on the road course on the start of the month of May, and win the Indy 500. The last guy to do it was Simon Pagenaud, who drove, ironically, for Roger Penske. And so, yeah, Alex Palou, man, that guy, he's got this hybrid system down. He's won 5 of the 6 races already. He's got a freaking insanely points lead now. And hey, man, this kid, he can drive an Indy car, Oh, excuse me. But yeah, and then following that, the drama didn't end there, because even though the race was over, there were some penalties handed out. 2 Andretti Global Team cars, and then unfortunately one of the Prema cars, which wasn't the pole winning car. It was I think the number 90 that they have, or 99, whatever. But ironically, the second place car, Marcus Ericsson, and man, I feel gutted for that guy, because he was like on that last lap. I was hoping he would make that last lap pass, or the final pass of the race before the final lap, because I knew going into that final lap he wasn't going to be able to, like, I don't know, like I said, the quality of racing, those runs that those cars were getting were not as great as before those hybrid systems. And Man, he sent it. You know, he didn't wreck it, but he brought home a second place. But unfortunately, that second place got stripped from him, and I think he ended up finishing, if I'm not mistaken, 31st. And then the other Andretti car, I don't know who. I think it was Kyle Kirkwood's car that finished 32nd, and then the number 90 finished last. But yeah, it was. I've seen a couple videos out there, especially with David Land, because he's a big IndyCar guy, and I know he loves his Indy 500. So watching his videos, yeah, Indy 500 was something else this year. But enough of that. Let's talk about the World 600, the Coke 600, NASCAR and Prime's first race. Let me tell you this, because I did watch the practice session on Prime. The quality in picture, it is insane. From what NASCAR and Fox had to this, and I'm not talking in terms of like production as well too, because they knocked it out of the park. NASCAR and Prime, Amazon did a really good job with them taking this 5 race stretch, because they only got 5 races, and after that I believe it's TNT or Max that's doing those 5 races, and then it's NBC to finish off the year. But man, NASCAR on Prime, like that the picture was just phenomenal. And then like it was funny too, because my dad has a Prime membership, and I told him like, hey, you know, they're gonna start showing races on Prime. They're gonna start, like, this is the first ever that NASCAR is gonna start streaming. And so when he watched it too, he even said the same thing. Like the quality in picture was just phenomenal. That 1080p was crystal clear. And let's talk about the people they brought on board. You know, Junior, Letarte, cousin Carl is working with these guys now. Danielle Trotta, and I'm not a big Corey LaJoie fan, but hey, you know, they gotta have someone that has some kind of input with these new cars. But yeah, the entire crew that they had for Prime, phenomenal. And again, I wasn't fully engaged with the race. I was able to watch the start of the race before I started my 600. And let me tell you, I like, from just listening to the broadcast as I was racing, Junior, Letarte, like those guys. This is why I'm kind of glad that they kept them together, because Letarte and Junior worked together, and I loved how they talked about when they were supposed to win the 600 back in 11. That duo was just great in the booth. And then Adam Alexander too, because he's doing all the Xfinity races, and I'm not gonna lie, Adam Alexander kills it with those two in the booth, and just that trio, you know, it was just great. The way they were engaged, the way they were kind of expressing, jeez, I just lost the words there, because I was just like, again, like I said, Amazon knocked it out of the park with NASCAR and Prime, because oh my goodness, it was just great. I just love the quality of production, the announcers, the way they were just fully engaged and not kind of half-assing their commentating, you know. And I'm not trying to pick at Mike Joy or Kevin Harvick or Clint Boyer. I just that I think, me personally, when I look NASCAR and Fox, I think back of like the Darrell Waltrip, Larry Mack, and Mike Joy days, because those three killed it, and that's what Fox needed. And the chemistry was just, it has not been there. And nothing against Mike Joy, and Mike Joy's just, you know, gotta kind of, you know, do his own thing now, and really Fox kind of just revamp their production line. But I don't think they're gonna do that, especially the way they handled the IndyCar and Fox stuff. I doubt NASCAR and Fox is going to do anything. Because, I mean, for crying out loud, they didn't even update their freaking graphics. They're still using the same graphics that they've been doing. And that's one of the things I have an ick with. It was like every time that Fox renewed their licensings, or they're going to revamp their entire production, they do it with all their sports. Not just, you know, football, baseball. They do it with NASCAR too. And the fact that they didn't do jack shit for NASCAR, you know, it's like, it was a breath of fresh air that Prime did it, because I was worried they weren't gonna that I wasn't gonna do a good job. But oh my god. And then the commercial quality, the side by sides and all that, like, jeez, it was just so great, you know. And like, one of the things I was saying, the way that the commentator, the way they articulate things, the way they were in depth with the information and stuff like that, the way they were feeding it to us fans, it's like, it made me more engaged. And the fact that they did the World 600, I'm happy that Junior was able to do that because I know that's one of his favorite races that I know that was one of his races that he ever wanted to call. So the fact that they had that energy in that race too from start to finish was great. The quality in racing with this Gen 7 car at Charlotte was great. So now let's talk about that because I talked a lot about NASCAR and Prime because they 10 out of 10 they knocked it out of the park with that race. So going into the World 600, Ross Chastain wrecks in practice. He has to go to backup car, so essentially they're going to have to start from the back. Kyle Larson, going into the 600, qualifies the car in second. And William Byron, being the sleeper he is, he had a really fast car. So going into the race, we start. Kyle Larson, I can tell he was very dejected after that Indy car crash, but he had to put out all those emotions to the side and focus on the 600. And rightfully he did. Because with authority, he led that first lap. And I'm like, all right, Kyle Larson's here to not mess around. He's like, all right, I put that behind him. But one thing I noticed, again, due to the crystal clear picture quality, when they were doing the in-car cameras and they showed Kyle Larson's like face, like his eyes, because that's all you can really see. You can't see his face because of the full helmet. But I can tell in his eyes that he was still not over that Indy 500 crash. Even though he was leading, he was doing what he does best in that cup car, he still had that emotion just dwelling in him. And again, like I said, with the crunch time and all that, you know, I think just the change of how everything happened, it really messed with his head. Because I think it was lap 30 or something, 26, he hits the wall. And he smacked that wall straight on hard. And I think that's essentially what messed his car up because down the line, he ended up, he brings out the first caution. He spins out, thankfully doesn't hit anything, but he spins out into the infield. That reshuffles the field. And unfortunately, a little past halfway of the race, I think it was like lap 200 and something, Daniel Suarez can't listen to his spotter and freaking ends up wrecking a good portion of the field. And right when you see Larson trying to avoid him, doink, ends up taking him out. And that ends Kyle Larson's night. And oh man, that interview, you can just really tell by the tone of his voice, his body language, that he was very dejected. That race really kicked his butt. Not only that race, but the Indy 500, you know. And I felt for him, dude. I really did, because I think with a lot of that pressure, the anticipation of him attempting the double, you know, it just got the best of him, you know. And I think Letarte said it best. Like, even the best drivers the best driver in the world can have moments like that, you know. And unfortunately, you know, it happened to Kyle Larson. But I do hope that in the future he at least tries to run an Indy 500. I don't think the double's really in the books because, like he said, that time crunch is really what got to him twice in the year. And, you know, he's just got to move on. And dang, it just sucked, you know, because I really was pulling for him to win both races. But that race still continued on. And really that race was just mainly dominated between William Byron and Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, I think after the first stage, he kind of got his car dialed in to essentially be competing with William Byron, and they were both exchanging the lead back and forth. And I think it was like towards the end, the last cycle of pit stops, where they both come in together and they both come out, and that was like, dude, and again, the announcers, everyone was killing it on Prime. And so who was coming from dead last and creeping his way up to the front? Good old Watermelon Man, Chastain. And this is why he's kind of been like, I want to say he's my favorite driver, but he's one of those drivers I do like to see because that's what the sport needs, you know. With this Hail Melon attempt at Martinsville, you know, I think that kind of solidified his, you know, his place in the sport because he likes to be creative, you know, and I think he comes from a humble background, especially with the way he raced like lower tier Xfinity teams, Cup teams. Like, that guy's definition of not giving up. Both him and Alex Bowman are the two drivers I look at because they both race for lower funded teams and now they're on the top teams. And so, dang, man, Ross Chastain, like, honestly, because my 600 finished, I think, 50 laps before their race ended, so I was able to watch those last laps, and man, Junior and Letarte and Alexander were killing it with the announcements. Like, each lap, dude, it was just like insane. And I just loved how Logano just messed things up for Byron too. Like, it was just insane. And then even Hamlin too towards the end, because he got those new tires. Because essentially Hamlin fell out because they didn't get the full fuel load that they needed. So essentially he had to drive, or he had to come down pit road and, you know, top off, and they threw him some fresh tires, and essentially tried to go for that fastest lap, because now we had that fastest lap for that bonus point. So I think Hamlin was like, yeah, screw it, I'm gonna go for that. And so when Chastain was catching Byron, and I just loved how Junior was just really into the race. And that's why Junior's not only my favorite driver, but I think he's like my favorite announcer, because he becomes a fan like us, you know. He likes to see quality of racing in there. And so when, again, like I said, when Junior, Letarte, and Adam Alexander were just like, you know, announcing like lap by lap, it was just great. And excuse me, boy oh boy, that was just a great race overall. Like, I was just very impressed with how everything ended up. And so, yeah, Chastain comes from dead last and wins the freaking race. And he did it with authority. And I loved hearing his radio, because he's like the World 600. I'm like, that's a true NASCAR driver right there. Because those of you that don't know, before it was called the Coca-Cola 600, it was the World 600, you know? And that's why I feel like what Coke should do next year is really just call it the World 600 presented by Coca-Cola, so that way their name is at least still in there. But throw in that throwback name, you know? It's a crown jewel race, and the fact that Ross Chastain acknowledged it as a crown jewel race of NASCAR and that he won, oh, it was great. Like I said, Monaco GP, I really wasn't engaged as much because I was still half asleep and I had to do my race. Indy 500 was just weird. But that Coke 600, that World 600, oh, it was great. Honestly, for how... And this is what I'm going to do in one of my videos, like ranking like my Triple Crown days, like in terms of like a tier list of what were my favorites and what weren't. This one definitely was a memorable one for sure, and the fact that NASCAR on Prime kind of just knocked it out of the park, like I said, it was a good race good racing from start to finish, you know. And I think that's enough I gotta say. Like I said, I'm gonna talk about my attempt at the Triple Crowns, because the Grand Prix I started 3rd, finished 7th. My 500 I started 10th, finished 27th. Which I didn't complete the entire race. And then my 600, I started 14th and finished 1st. So I'll talk about those in the next video. But again, guys, thank you for watching this video. Please give me a like, subscribe, and hit that ring notification button for future motorsport stuff. And I'll catch y'all on the flippity flip. Bye.